Hi everyone, I'm Mark. I'm the Program Manager of Rediscover Cycling here at the Rediscovery Centre in Ballymun, where we do all our bike repair and bike reconditioning. This is going to be the first video in a series of 4, looking at how to check the bike in detail. It's a very inexpensive and reliable way to get around. We want to make sure it's working properly and safely. So we're going to check over the bike as if we're building it from scratch. We're going to check the core units working out towards the smaller parts at the end that wear it out the fastest. So the first things we're going to look at are the frame, the headset and the forks up here at the front, and the bottom bracket and cranks at the base of the bike. So to start off checking the frame, we're just going to check it front to back, and it can be useful to clean the frame as you're doing this. Really train your eye in to check all the junctions and along the crossbar and the down tube, looking for chips in the paint or anything major, because it can look fine as is. Say this frame, for example, can look fine just scanning over it, but if you look carefully you can notice major issues. So you really want to train your eye in and guide along, looking for any major issues. A substantial amount of rust, large dents or cracks, and you're going to want to have the bike checked by a professional to see if it needs to be replaced. And we want to check the frame first, so that we know if the frame is good, we can then look at the other parts around it. So we check front to back, from the headset all the way back here to the rear wheel, checking all the junctions and making sure they're all okay. Giving it a nice wipe down as we go. Keeping the bike clean is one of the easiest things you can do to keeping it lasting as long as possible. So we've got the frame covered then. Next up is the headset, the set of bearings at the head of the bike. It's what allows the handlebars to turn up at the front. So this is the first of our bearing checks. Throughout the bike we have small little ball bearings, balls of steel, usually in a ring, in various places around the bike, anywhere that turns. So we have some in the headset, in each wheel that allows the wheel to turn, and then also in the pedals and our bottom bracket, which we'll be looking at in a minute. And the check for all of them is quite similar. They should turn very smoothly, so when we're checking the handlebars, we're going to hold the very end of the handlebar and just turn it really slowly and smoothly and see how it feels. It shouldn't click into any particular position. It should turn smoothly the entire time. We know there isn't excess friction on the bearings. So all bearings should turn smoothly, but they shouldn't rattle. There shouldn't be any play. There should be no knocking sensation. We shouldn't be able to pull the handlebars around inside. The main test for the headset, if we pop the bike on the ground, pull the front brake and push forward and back. I'm getting a bit of movement here in my one because the bearings are worn, they're a bit loose. So we want to get that sorted before we go for any kind of substantial cycling. So pull the front brake, push it forward and back, and feel for any knocking or clicking. You also want to check that the parts holding the headset together are tight, they're not going anywhere. So I'm going to check this very top nut here. I'm going to make sure that it's tight, it's not going to go anywhere, it's not going to allow the bearings to loosen off anymore. Some other kinds of headsets, say if the stem has 2 bolts at the back, we want to check that these 2 bolts are tight. We don't need to tighten them too hard, they're quite small, so we don't want to hang out of them, but you want to make sure that they're not going to go anywhere. They're going to hold our headset together. So going back to our red bike, We also want to check the forks, just like we did the frame. We can go top to bottom, just scan over them, give them a wipe down as you go. Again, looking for any major rust, dents, cracks at the welds. It should be in good condition. So we've checked the frame, we've checked the headset. To finish off the 3 steps for this video, we're going to check the bottom bracket. So it's the bracket of bearings in the bottom of the frame. So down inside your bottom bracket, you'll have a ring of bearings. It'll differ a little bit from bike to bike. It'll be housed inside some kind of cup, and there'll be an axle running through it that will turn inside. That will allow the pedals to turn. So checking it is very similar to checking the headset. It should turn very easily, nice and smoothly, but there should be no play, no knocking. So if I hold the frame and I hold the very end of the crank and I try and pull it in and out, it should be nice and solid, no movement, no clicking. And the same on each side. You want to test both sides. If you're getting a clicking on each side, it's to do with the bottom bracket. If you're getting a clicking on just one side, it's probably this crank itself is loose. So when we refer to the crank, we're referring to this part here, not the pedal, just the crank connecting the pedal to the bottom bracket. We're going to make sure that it's tight. So this bolt here in the center can be an 8mm Allen key, or sometimes it can be a 14mm socket, depending on the bike. This is a nice big bolt to get it really, really tight. You're going to be putting your full body weight on there. You want to make sure it's not going to budge, and do that for both sides. Some bikes, they may have a pair of small bolts, like the headset we looked at a moment ago, and we'll just check that those are tight on each side. They're not going to be as tight as the large bolt in this bottom bracket, so a torque wrench like this is recommended if you have access to one, to be sure you're not over tight. So that's the first 3 steps in our comprehensive check. We checked the frame front to back, we checked the headset and the nut holding it in there, and the fork. It's our first bearing. Then we moved on to our next bearing, the bottom bracket, making sure that it's turning smoothly, there's no play, and the cranks are tightened down. In the next video, we're going to move on to our wheels and tires, and our contact points, our pedals, saddle and handlebars. And we'll continue in our series on 10 steps on checking your bike in total to make sure that it's safe to ride. I'll see you in the next video.